We're really excited to have your racing model go live with us this week. I think a handful of best bets most days will be perfect for our members, especially with the really strong strike rate and the profitability that we've seen. So we'll have a look under the hood of what goes into all that shortly. But before we do, I'm sure our guys would like to know a bit about the analysts themselves. So welcome, and we can start with you telling us a bit about your background.
Yeah, well, I've been punting for a lot of years now. I was working with you guys. I think we started back in 2010 or 11, so that was some time ago now, where I came on board as the ratings analyst, and I think I hung around for probably 4 or 5 years till maybe mid or late 2014 from memory. I was doing ratings, working closely with Vince Accardi with his speed data and whatnot, and we were able to have a good run there. At that stage, I also decided to build a database. What was happening was I was inundated with Excel files. Sort of went from having one file and doing the ratings in one file to having a lot of different files with a lot of different things, and that sort of prompted me to go out and get a guy to help me create a database, which at that point was mainly to store the data and manage it in an efficient manner, and then from there over the last 5 or 6 years, we've been able to store and collate a lot of data, and the database, I guess, has morphed into somewhere where the data is stored to a tool for helping being able to check over historical data, link in different data sets, and try to create different models for betting that hopefully have a profitable end.
Okay. So what would you say is your edge on the market? I mean, you've gone from years ago where it was more of a traditional role where you develop your own ratings and do all the videos and specialise in 1 or 2 states, to this approach where it's really data driven and the model spits out the bets that you'll be having.
Yep.
How does that, I suppose, result in a real edge on the market? What do you think your point of difference is?
Personally, for me, I got to a point where I feel I was cooked. By the time I finished up, I was losing, and I think I was just burnt out. So, for me to be able to step back and just manage data, I guess, is something that excited me. So, I got excited about that, which was, you need to be excited and enjoy what you're doing. The other thing is that a lot of the data that I use, I sort of create in-house. So one of the main data tables is things that I've been able to, create and source from different, points of data that I've had. So it's not something that's available to the market. So I guess, you may have a traditional database that's available to the public, and they may have, I don't know how many customers they might have, but let's just say it's 500, then you've essentially got 500 people interrogating the same data and finding the same edge, and that can last not long. And I think that we've all probably seen within those different databases where you may find something at 30% strike rate and 10% pot, and after a year or two it's still 30% strike rate, but the pot's negative because everyone's sort of latched on and you have to move on and find something else. So by having and managing data that is essentially proprietary and your own, I feel that there's a bit of an edge there, because whatever you do is somewhat protected, unless someone swooped in and pinched your system.
Yep. Well, you mentioned data there and your own setup. You might as well bring up some of the information that you're willing to share. Obviously, there's a fair bit of intellectual property that you'd like to keep to yourself, but I know there's some info that you're willing to put on here, and we can discuss a little bit about how you go about it.
Yeah, so I'll just, sorry guys, I'll just pull this up and get it in the right format. But yeah, so basically I use a tool that I've used for a long time that I was put onto by my programmer called SAP Lemira, and you're able to, I guess, even not at a high level, you can, if you had a big database in Excel, you would be able to link Excel in there, or if you had an SQL database, you're able to obviously link in that particular database, and with a little bit of basic knowledge of how to program something, you're able to get your pot and your strike rate and whatnot in there. So a lot of the data that's behind these things comes through not raw. So the biggest thing for me is, what I've learned is, if you're creating a model from a raw data set, you're starting at as negative pot as you can get. But if you're able to work with a different type of data set that comes in as the base or the foundation, that's closer to 0% pot or break even. I might be stating the obvious, but it's a lot easier to get 10 or 20% pot out of a base set of data that's pretty close to zero, as opposed to -20.
Sorry to interrupt, but a good example there, something like our database ratings, where you're saying you don't want to start with every horse in every race. It's more about, give me a data set like the database ratings, which are free, and you can assess how the top raters perform, and second top raters and third top raters, and something like the top raters at best tote, only lose, 3 cents in the dollar, or 3% on turnover. So that'd be your starting point, horses that rate okay on that. But then you have data sources from so many different areas that you interrogate, cross-pollinate, whatever the words are for it, but you put those all into the mix and find out where the value is.
Yeah, so that's exactly right. I mean, everyone's different. Every database has, there's a handful of variables in each data set that generally can get you pretty quickly, pretty close. But you generally have to crunch some numbers pretty hard to sort of get profitable if you're starting from a long way back, and that's something that I sort of want to try and avoid. I would rather use something, like you said, that may be -3% or -5%, or has a 40% strike rate but loses a bit. Something where there's a foundation that is very solid, and in particularly a foundation that's driven primarily by data, because like you said before, I used to do everything in the traditional sense, and certainly, and I'm speaking for myself here, but like if you woke up in the morning and your dog got ran over, or you had a fight with your wife, or your screaming kid kept you up all night, it's unlikely you're probably going to perform at your optimum, which therefore can have an effect on your decisions on the punt and the way you may see a race. Whereas what I like about this approach, and what's helped me, is as long as the data's consistent, there's really no reason for things to not work in the future.
Okay, so yeah, you can give us a bit of a look around some of what you work on here.
Yeah, so basically, when I deal with big data sets, it can be quite slow at times. So I've just basically put in Rose Hill here just for the speed of this. But what we can do is we can just, I'll keep that one in there. So each track also has their own idiosyncrasies, and different things that may or may not work. So we've got here runners at Rose Hill. So for this particular set, there's 9,339. under 10% strike rate. Proportionate's minus about 16% pot, and that's level staking, it's minus 26. So all I'm going to do now is switch over to a different slide on this screen, and what we can start doing now is looking at, as an example, if we want to look at a distance at Rosehill, say 1100 metres. So what we're doing now is we're looking at all of the races at Rosehill over 1100 metres, and what I want to do is I want to put in a map function that I've created and basically see if there's a zone or anything within that map where there's profit. And as you can see, sorry guys, I put in the wrong one, I think.
Is this forecast in running position?
Forecast in running position, yes. And as you can see, so for the map final rating, so it's a little bit confusing, but to the left here, that's leaders, and here's back markers to the right. And then I'll switch over to some other ones, and they're opposite. It's a bit confusing, but not really, because it's mine. But anyway, and we go to map final. So basically what this is telling me, because for this, the purpose of this is that if you backed proportionately every horse in this system at Rosehill over 1100 metres, you're going to lose 142 units. And of those 142 units, 134 of them are horses that settle in this sector. And this particular sector is way back. So, you know, what you would do is you'd just drag in map final, and you would say you only want to back horses that settle greater than or equal to 0.45. And these particular figures may not mean a lot to you, but they're just something I've derived. So all of a sudden, if you get rid of those runners, you can see that you know, your minus 140 odd units is just down to minus 8, simply by cutting out those horrendous back markers. And then if we click over back into this other one, it'll just give us a little bit of a rundown. So, you know, we're left with 933 runners at a minus 1.2, basically break even, because that's at the on-course SP. And then what we do is we might go back in here, and we might want to look at speed, how fast the horse can run. We pop that in there, and as you can see, if a horse can't run faster than, let's call it 88, there's really not a lot of money there, is there? It's a pretty damning loss. Sorry?
Is that 88 your rating or your speed rating for that horse?
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So, you know, as you can see, without going and manipulating the data to suit us, generally most people would believe that back markers aren't a great proposition. So we've been able to get rid of them. And most people would agree that you don't want to back slow horses. You know, so what we're doing is we're going through here, and we're just looking at logical racing terms to try and, you know, get rid of the crap, I guess. And then all of a sudden we're 25 units up here. So we're down to 758 bets, 15% strike rate and a 4.7% pot. So when I look at speed, I also want to have a look at class. So I'm going to go and have a look at class. Let's see what impact the class has. So that's interesting. So you sort of get up to 100 units, around 100, and there's a big drop-off. What that can mean sometimes is that a lot of these horses are very short and overrated, and for the purpose of this exercise, I won't cull these. But there are instances where you will need to isolate, you know, all of the runners in this group and work out why it drops off. and that generally is because they're short and overrated.
Very well exposed.
Sorry?
Something like very well exposed, as in the market can accurately assess or, yeah, as you say, overrate their performance. They're not horses on the run.
Correct. But as you can see, we've got an example here where we're already at 100 units profit. If we wanted to cut it off there, you know, we can also put in a standard jockey rating. Oops, sorry, that's the rank. Might have that one in this particular one. We've got the trainer rank and the jockey rank. Sorry, I thought I had the value. So as you can see there, so this is the rank of the trainer within the race. So certainly the trainer up to the first 5, there's money there, and then after the top 5 it drops off. And we'll do the same with the jockey, the J-Rat. And it's pretty even. You know, you might even want to look at 1, but you could probably make a case to look at the top 6, and then certainly it drops off. So let's just do that just for the purpose of this exercise. And you can see how easy the system is to use and whatnot. And then we go back to this other one. And we're up to, so we've got 465 bets at 20% pot, 20% strike rate, and around 18% pot. And that's using the on-course SP official price. So my whole theory behind what I do is I model everything on the on-course SP because it's the worst possible scenario. And as you know, there's a lot of different ways that if you know, depending on your Betfair rate or depending on if you're a good shopper of early prices, you can beat the on-course SP. So that's my whole theory. But as you've seen, you know, just by looking at races at Rosehill over 1,100 metres, getting rid of dirty back markers, horses that aren't very slow with a top 6 jockey, and we'll just put the trainer back in, T-rate rank. Oops, wrong screen. T-rat. Yeah, so that's pretty even. So everything has an impact on everything else as well, you know, so once you put that in, it changes what the trainers would display as. And then the last thing is to put in the date, because you want to see what it would look like to bet. So as you can see, that's what the graph would look like from the start of 2014 for this model, with, for no better choice of words, of just thrown together.
Yep. And this is not how you go about it. This is just so people have an idea of what's available to you. I know you've left some stuff out that you don't want made publicly available. But the system or the model produces qualifiers each day. So
yes,
what we're doing with Rick's racing model is there'll be an average of 3 or 4 bets a day, or 100 to 120 a month. That can be anywhere in the country, and it's based on all this work you've done. So it came from a background of traditional form analysis and punting, and then all of that morphed into the database work that you've got with all these other external sources, and be able to basically put everything into the recipe and then see what comes out as the strongest. So you've been doing better than 40% strike rate and 20% pot. We're not forecasting quite as strong as that, because that's very hard to maintain. We've said that we're confident it can hit it at 35%, and we'd be very happy at around 15% pot. Now you take Betfair SP and have a minimum price of $2. Our guys can do that, or use best of the best. Do you want to just explain, why you use Betfair SP and why you cut it off at around $2, or at $2, I should say?
Yeah, but basically, from what I've seen in the modelling of these models and the bets in real life, there just isn't the money in these systems. What I have found is that when the horses are odds on, they're generally really odds on. So, if we're talking odds on, the horses this model finds, they're generally not $1.90 or $1.80. A lot of them are $1.50 or $1.40 or $1.60, and they just don't, they just don't seem to win enough to sort of warrant risking the money. So for me personally, I take minimum $2. The Betfair SP has to be at least $2. And in 6 months or a year, if I was proven wrong by these odds-on runners, then I would look at incorporating them in. But at this stage, from the data that I've got at hand, and I want to win as much money as I can, they're not going to help me win more money. They're just going to make some drawdowns a bit longer and make me spend a bit more money for no reason. So for now, I just avoid them and take $2 as the bottom price on the Betfair SP. Now in the results, you will see that some horses are plugged in at less than $2, and that's for the reason of after the adjustment for the your commission rate on Betfair. So a horse might be a couple of bucks on Betfair SP, and then depending on your commission rate, let's just say you back a winner at Rose Hill and it's $2, and you got to take out your 10%, so it's going to show up as $1.90. So you do in a roundabout way at times get odds on, but the Betfair SP as the guide should be not odds on, should be $2. Yep. Okay, yeah, you're just flicking through the results there.
Yeah, I'll go to the most recent ones. I think yesterday or the day before, there's a horse that's unders that wins, but long term they're not going to make us any money. So we're happy to pass on those and just stick with $2 plus. And still it has a really good strike rate. So I'll just go to that tier. I think we've updated with that one that was unders. There it is. Yeah, from the 20th. And then again, yesterday. I mean, Intrepidus won, but it's not really a major issue for us. We're happy with the strike rate and profitability of the runners that qualify, the ones at $2 plus.
Yeah, so I mean it's not that, yeah, exactly. It's not that they don't win. It's that for us to make money out of the odds-on runners, they probably need to win 60% of the time as an average, 60 to 65, because as I said, they're not like they're $1.90. Like some of these things are $1.40 and $1.50, and once you're $1.40 and $1.50, you're in a whole other league of a strike rate required. So the money's just not there. But obviously, each to their own, and some people are just going to do what they want to do, but that's not how I'll be doing it.
Okay, we'll wrap it up in just a second, but obviously we're excited to have you on board, and we think it's going to be a membership that appeals to a lot of people because there's action, there's winners, and there's profit. So there's a lot to like. But sometimes we get asked the question why you would want to share these bets if they're going so well. So I thought you might have the chance to answer that.
Yep. I guess it just ties back to something we touched on earlier, and this model is just one of many things that I'm doing at the moment. I guess I decided when I went down this route that I didn't want to rely on any one set of horses to feed the family. So I have numerous models that are running and have a lot of bets. I'm processing over 1,000 transactions a month through all my different models. So this is just one of them. I have continued to run my database to bank the data up, and that's come at a high cost. And I don't believe that this is really going to affect much of what I do, and it everyone likes to earn a bit of money, and obviously to give some people that know me from the past and people that don't know me an opportunity to jump back on board and enjoy some wins together.
Sounds like a plan. All right, Rick, really appreciate your time and explaining some of that. We're happy to do this again sometime and maybe dig a little deeper depending on the type of questions we get through. But excited to launch Rick's racing model, and all the best for plenty of winners.
Yep, thanks very much.
Cheers.